It was a rainy Saturday afternoon when I decided to kill some time at the mall. The place was bustling with shoppers, families, and teenagers hanging out. After wandering aimlessly for a while, I found myself drawn to a section of the mall I hadn't visited in years. Tucked away in a quiet corner was an old, vintage photo booth. The booth looked like it hadn't been updated in decades, with faded paint and peeling stickers. It was out of place among the modern stores and kiosks, and something about it piqued my curiosity. I decided to step inside and take a few photos for nostalgia's sake. As I closed the curtain behind me, the tiny space felt almost claustrophobic. The interior was dimly lit, and the seat was worn and uncomfortable. I inserted a few coins, and the machine whirred to life with a mechanical hum. The screen in front of me flickered, displaying the countdown. 3, 2, 1. I smiled for the first photo, trying to make the most of the quaint experience. The flash went off, and I waited for the next countdown. As the second flash went off, I thought I saw a shadow flicker on the screen, but I dismissed it as a trick of the light. By the time the fourth photo was taken, I felt a strange chill run down my spine. The booth seemed colder, and the air felt heavy. I couldn't shake the feeling that I wasn't alone. I quickly collected my printed photos and stepped out of the booth, eager to get back to the lively mall atmosphere. As I looked at the strip of photos, my heart skipped a beat. In the first photo, I was alone, smiling awkwardly at the camera. But in the second photo, a faint, ghostly figure appeared behind me. Barely visible, but unmistakably there. In the third photo, the figure was closer, and in the fourth, it was right next to me, its face an eerie blur. A wave of fear washed over me. I looked around, half expecting to see someone or something lurking nearby, but the mall was as busy as ever. I showed the photos to a few friends, but they just laughed it off, thinking it was some sort of malfunction or a prank. Determined to find an explanation, I spoke to one of the mall's security guards. He listened to my story with a serious expression and then shared a chilling piece of information. The photo booth had a reputation for being haunted. Years ago, a young girl had gone missing in the mall, and her last known location was near that photo booth. Since then, numerous people had reported seeing strange figures in their photos. Despite the guard's warnings, I couldn't resist the urge to investigate further. Over the next few weeks, I spent hours near the booth, watching other people use it and collecting their stories. Some saw nothing unusual, but others reported similar experiences: ghostly figures, cold chills, and an overwhelming sense of dread. One night, I decided to take one last set of photos. As I sat in the booth, I couldn't shake the feeling of being watched. The countdown began, and with each flash, the sense of unease grew. When I stepped out and looked at the photos, I saw it again, the same ghostly figure, now clearer than ever. I left the mall that night, vowing never to return to that eerie photo booth. Of shoppers without much trouble. After visiting a few stores, we found ourselves at the central atrium, where a large, decorative fountain captured my nephew's attention. It was one of his favorite spots, a place where kids would gather to throw coins and make wishes. As always, he was eager to join them. "Stay close," I reminded him as he dashed towards the fountain, his little red jacket bobbing through the crowd. I followed a few steps behind, momentarily distracted by a store display. When I looked back, he was gone. Panic gripped me. I called his name, but there was no response. Frantically, I scanned the crowd, my eyes darting from one face to another. I could feel my heart pounding in my chest as I hurried to the information desk to report him missing. The staff immediately alerted security, and within minutes, they were searching the mall. Time seemed to slow down. Minutes felt like hours as I waited for any news. The loudspeaker announcements described him perfectly, but there was no sign of him. My mind raced with horrible possibilities. Where could he be? Just when I was starting to lose hope, a security guard approached with my nephew in tow. Relief washed over me as I ran to him, pulling him into a tight hug. He looked unharmed, but clearly shaken. When I asked him where he had been, his story sent chills down my spine. He said he had followed a little girl who was crying, thinking she was lost and needed help. She had led him down a series of corridors he had never seen before, eventually taking him to a dimly lit, abandoned section of the mall. Then, without warning, she vanished. My nephew tried to find his way back, but ended up lost and alone, until the security guard found him near a service exit. None of it made sense. How could he have ended up in an abandoned part of the mall? When I questioned the security team, they seemed as puzzled as I was. According to them, there were no accessible abandoned areas, and all maintenance zones were securely locked. That night, I couldn't shake the feeling of unease. My nephew's vivid account of the crying girl seemed too real to be a figment of his imagination. In the following days, I did some research and discovered something deeply unsettling. Decades ago, a little girl had gone missing in that very mall under mysterious circumstances. She was never found, and rumors persisted that her spirit still wandered the mall, seeking help. I had no intention of going to the mall that Saturday. The sky was a gloomy shade of gray, and a storm was brewing, making the idea of a cozy day at home seem far more appealing. But I needed a gift for my friend's birthday, and the mall was my only option. The mall was packed, as usual, with people seeking shelter from the impending storm. The air was thick with the hum of chatter and the occasional crackle of the intercom. I navigated through the crowds, my mind already set on grabbing the gift and leaving as quickly as possible. After an hour of shopping, I felt the need for a quick break. My feet ached from wandering around, and the lines at the checkout counters seemed endless. That's when I spotted the restroom sign, pointing down a long, dimly lit hallway. It seemed like the perfect escape from the chaos. As I walked down the hallway, the noise of the mall began to fade, replaced by an eerie silence. The hallway felt unnervingly long, each step echoing off the walls. Finally, I reached the restroom door and pushed it open. It creaked loudly, the sound almost deafening in the quiet. Inside, the restroom was starkly different from the rest of the mall. The lighting was dim, casting long shadows across the tiled floor. A row of sinks lined one wall, and a few stalls stood at the far end. The air was cold, and I felt a shiver run down my spine. I chose a stall and locked the door behind me. Almost immediately, I felt a strange sense of unease, but I dismissed it as just the restroom being chilly. After all, mall restrooms weren't exactly known for their comfort. As I finished up, I heard a faint whisper. I froze, straining to hear. The whispering grew louder. Though I couldn't make out any words, my heart began to race. I told myself it was just the air conditioning or water pipes, but the whispers continued, seeming to come from right outside my stall. Quickly, I unlocked the door and stepped out into the main area of the restroom. There was no one there. The stalls were all empty, and the whispering had stopped. Trying to shake off the eerie feeling, I walked over to the sink to wash my hands. As I looked into the mirror, I saw a shadowy figure standing at the far end of the restroom. My blood ran cold. The figure was indistinct, more like a dense, dark fog than a person. I spun around to confront whatever it was, but there was nothing there. The room was empty. Heart pounding, I turned back to the mirror. The shadowy figure was gone. I hurriedly washed my hands, eager to leave. But just as I was about to turn off the tap, the lights began to flicker. The flickering was rapid and erratic, casting bizarre, shifting shadows around the room. I grabbed my things and rushed to the door, only to find it wouldn't open. Panic set in as I tugged harder, but it was as if the door was jammed or being held shut from the other side. The whispering returned, louder this time, and I could clearly hear my name being called. Suddenly, the lights went out completely. I was plunged into darkness, my only light coming from the faint glow of my phone screen. I used it as a flashlight, sweeping the beam around the room. That's when I saw the shadowy figure again, closer this time, standing in the middle of the restroom. I backed away, my hands shaking, desperately trying to open the door. Then, as abruptly as they had gone out, the lights flickered back on. The figure was gone, and the door swung open easily under my touch. I bolted out of the restroom and didn't stop until I was back in the crowded mall, surrounded by people. Breathless, I looked back towards the hallway. It appeared normal, nothing out of the ordinary. I thought about telling someone, but what could I say? That I saw a ghost in the restroom? I decided to keep it to myself. But I couldn't shake the feeling of being watched. Since that day, I've avoided that particular restroom. I've heard rumors from other shoppers and employees about strange occurrences in that part of the mall, flickering lights, cold spots, and eerie whispers. Some even claimed to have seen the same shadowy figure. Whatever it was, I'm convinced it wasn't just my imagination. The memory of that shadowy figure still haunts me, and I've learned to trust my instincts when something doesn't feel right. The mall, once a place of routine errands and leisure, now holds an unsettling memory that I'll never forget. It was supposed to be an ordinary evening at the mall with friends. We had spent the day shopping and decided to grab a bite to eat at the food court before heading home. As we were finishing our meal, someone suggested checking out a new store on the top floor. We all agreed, eager to explore. We made our way to the nearest elevator. It was one of the older models, with metal doors and a faint smell of oil. We crowded inside, excited for our last stop of the day. One of us pressed the button for the top floor, and the doors slid shut with a clunk. As the elevator began to ascend, we laughed and joked, enjoying each other's company. Suddenly, the elevator jolted violently, causing us to stumble. We exchanged uneasy glances, but it was clear the elevator had malfunctioned before. The elevator came to a sudden stop, and the lights flickered. We looked at each other puzzled. I tried pressing the button to continue our journey, but it remained unresponsive. An eerie silence filled the space, broken only by the soft hum of the malfunctioning lights. Then we started to hear it whispers. At first, they were so faint that we thought it was just the sound of the malfunctioning machinery, but as the whispers grew louder, they became distinct and unsettling. The voices seemed to be laughing and talking, but no one else was in the elevator with us. The sounds came from all directions, echoing around us. My friends and I tried to stay calm. We called for help, but our phones had no signal. The laughter grew louder, more sinister. It was as if someone or something was playing with us from the shadows. The temperature in the elevator dropped suddenly, and we could see our breath in the cold air. We huddled together, trying to reassure each other, but then, the elevator lurched again, moving erratically. It seemed to drop and rise without warning, sending us all into a state of panic. We braced ourselves against the walls, holding onto each other for support. The whispers turned into mocking laughter, growing more frantic and chaotic. It felt as though an invisible presence was toying with us, reveling in our fear. We shouted and pounded on the doors, desperate to escape, but it was as if the elevator was taunting us, refusing to move. Just when we thought we couldn't take any more, the elevator came to a sudden, jarring stop. The light stabilized, and an eerie silence fell over us once more. The doors creaked open slowly, revealing the dimly lit hallway of the mall. We stumbled out, shaken and exhausted. The mall was eerily quiet, with no sign of the commotion we had experienced. We made our way to the nearest exit, feeling a mix of relief and disbelief. Later, we learned that the elevator had been experiencing issues for weeks. There were rumors about strange occurrences and unexplained noises, but nothing concrete. We never spoke much about that night, and we certainly never used that elevator again. I took a night shift at a toy store known for its extensive collection of antique dolls. It seemed like a straightforward job, but it quickly became anything but ordinary. The store was usually calm during the day, but at night, the atmosphere changed entirely. The first sign something was wrong came when I heard faint whispers from the doll section. At first, I chalked it up to fatigue or my imagination, but as the nights went by, the whispers grew louder, and something more disturbing began to happen. One evening, I was restocking shelves when I noticed movement out of the corner of my eye. I turned to see one of the dolls, a Victorian-era porcelain figure with a delicate, haunting face seemingly shifting its position. Its eyes followed me, and its head tilted as if observing my every move. I tried to ignore it, but the doll's gaze felt unnervingly alive. As I continued my tasks, I realized that other dolls were also out of place. They weren't just moved, they were rearranged into patterns, forming eerie shapes and symbols on the shelves. It was as if they were trying to communicate something, though I couldn't make out any clear message. The whispers became more distinct, almost like a conversation. The voices were indecipherable at first, but they started to grow louder, more frantic. The temperature in the store dropped suddenly, and I could see my breath fogging in the cold air. One night, the store's lights flickered, casting long, unsettling shadows across the walls. I was in the back room, trying to ignore the growing sense of dread, when I heard a loud crash from the main floor. My heart pounded as I grabbed a flashlight and went to investigate. The sight that greeted me was chilling. The dolls were no longer in their cases. They were scattered across the floor, their faces frozen in horrifying, twisted expressions. They seemed to be arranged in a grotesque circle, with their heads turned inward. The whispering had turned into a low, guttural chant, reverberating through the store. I backed away, feeling a cold sweat break out on my forehead. As I stumbled backward, I felt a sudden, icy hand grip my shoulder. I spun around, but no one was there. The chanting grew louder, and I could almost make out words, though they were twisted and incomprehensible. In a panic, I tried to reassemble the dolls, but it was as if they resisted. Their limbs felt unnaturally heavy, and they seemed to move on their own. The lights flickered again, and the store was plunged into darkness for a moment. When the lights returned, the dolls were back in their cases, neatly arranged, as if nothing had happened. I fled from the store that night, my heart racing and my mind reeling. I couldn't shake the feeling that the dolls had somehow come to life, that something malevolent was trapped within them. I avoided the store for days, but the whispers and the eerie presence seemed to follow me. When I finally spoke to other night workers, I learned that they had experienced similar phenomena, dolls moving on their own, whispers echoing through the store, and an oppressive, malevolent atmosphere. Some claimed to have seen the dolls' eyes glowing in the dark, their mouths moving as if speaking in ancient, forgotten languages. It was the holiday season, and the mall was bustling with shoppers eager to pick out gifts and enjoy the festive decorations. My job was to help with the Christmas display, which was a major attraction for the mall. The display featured a massive or elaborately decorated tree and a winter wonderland scene with twinkling lights and festive ornaments. Everything was going smoothly until one night when I stayed late to finish setting up the display. As the mall emptied, the atmosphere grew quieter, but the festive decorations were still brightly lit, casting colorful reflections across the display area. I was carefully placing the final decorations when I heard an unsettling sound: soft, eerie laughter. I turned around, expecting to see someone playing a prank, but the area was empty. I shrugged it off, attributing it to the building's settling sounds or my tired imagination. The next night, I was working alone again when I noticed something odd. The ornaments on the Christmas tree had been rearranged. It wasn't just a few decorations, several were missing, and others were moved into strange, haphazard positions. I figured someone must have been messing around, so I put everything back in place. As I worked, I heard more strange noises, soft thuds, and the faint rustling of decorations as if they were being moved on their own. The lights flickered intermittently, casting long shadows that seemed to dance around the room. My heart started to race, and a chill ran down my spine. The third night, I was determined to get to the bottom of the disturbances. I set up a small camera to monitor the display while I worked elsewhere in the mall. The camera recorded the display area, and when I reviewed the footage, I was horrified. The video showed the decorations moving by themselves. Ornaments spun around in midair. Garlands seemed to slither across the floor, and the tree topper swayed as if someone or something was playing with it. The camera also captured fleeting shadows darting across the display, and the soft, eerie laughter that had haunted me was clearly audible in the background. I shared the footage with my colleagues, and their reactions were mixed. Some were skeptical, but others were genuinely frightened. One worker claimed to have seen a ghostly figure near the display, a shadowy shape that disappeared as soon as she looked directly at it. The story about the haunted Christmas display quickly spread through the mall. More workers reported hearing strange noises, seeing lights flicker, and feeling an icy chill near the display. The once cheerful holiday setting became a source of fear and unease. The mall management decided to investigate further, but found no technical issues with the lighting or sound systems. Despite their efforts, the disturbances continued. Eventually, they decided to temporarily dismantle the display, citing safety concerns. The eerie occurrences seemed to stop after that.